Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us here on Public Affairs. This edition of Public Affairs, we have information that you will be transformed by watching this and listening to this and be enriched by it. I am your host. My name is John Peterson, and thank you for joining us here. This program is going to be of great value, and we can't wait to get started to tell you this. Now, my guests here are Larry Strickland from Central Christian Church here in Marion, and Dave Dunlap, who is a craftsman and an artisan that I'll just have to let him explain it to you because it's far greater than I can describe. So, again, folks, thank you for joining us. And Larry, if you will, begin by telling us who you are and your involvement here.
Yes, I'm Larry Strickland. I'm a member of Central Christian Church. The church bought the current building, which used to be the King Mansion, the year I was born. So I've been there a long time. I've had some times I was out of state, but I eventually come back. I realized how important the windows were in our services and realized that there really wasn't a lot of information in one place about the windows. So a couple years ago, I put together a little pamphlet about the windows, and in that process, I come across the original designer, builder, installer of the windows, Mr. Dave Dunlap.
Now,
Hi, Larry.
Before Dave talks, Larry introduced a subject here. First of all, the King Mansion was transformed into church, and you said it when you were born. What was that year?
About 1947.
Okay, 1947. Okay, and also we are taping this here, and it'll be aired, here in late November, or I should actually early December. But the point is, the reason we're taping this, you mentioned it earlier about stained glass windows, but you're having an event in your church where the people can actually feel, touch, see, and experience the beauty of these stained glass windows. And before we lose track here, what date is that? And you can give an invitation to people to come out and see.
December 9th, Marion Communities having a church tour. Central Christian is on that tour. We're kind of the last one physically from downtown Marion. So people usually show up toward the end of the tour, but I think it starts at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock and goes up until 8 o'clock. So you're welcome to come see the church windows for yourself. We tentatively plan on backlighting the windows, which means we're going to put lights on the outside. So when you're on the inside, you can see the full beauty of all 10 windows.
Wow. So, Dave, you're the craftsman par excellence here, and you actually created the windows. So introduce yourself, please.
My name's Dave Dunlap, originally from Waldo. Kind of like Larry, I've been around the country, so to speak, and came back 6 years ago, I think.
And you had a studio in Waldo where you did this high quality stained glass work.
Yes. The building's gone now. It was right at the south end of Waldo.
Okay.
It was built in the 30s as a pure oil station. And then it was a restaurant. When I bought it, they were about ready to tear it down. And I saved it, and we operated out of it for several years until, economies go up and down. And when the economy goes bad, stained glass is about the first thing people decide that they want to, hold off on. So, but when I started working with the churches, it changed the entire business. I started out making small decorative things, traveling around to craft fairs all over the country, and mostly on the East Coast. And when I first started, the first church windows that I ever made were at Emmanuel Lutheran, in their annex, they called it. And
Here in Marion?
Here in Marion.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, I had done quite a few windows for people, just residential things. And one day Dick Barnhart called up and wanted to know if I would be interested in.
And Dick Barnhart was a Marion resident
Oh, yes.
and
Yeah.
a member of the church?
Yes.
Yeah. Dick owned House of Design. A lot of the people, the older people will remember the House of Design.
Wow.
Dick and Bill Barnhart owned it, and Dick was really well known in the community, and he asked me if I'd be interested in doing windows for the church, and I said, heck yes. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
And so I met with Dick, and we discussed how to go about it. When you are first contacted by a church, I try to design windows that are specific to the surroundings, the church itself, the architecture of the church, and what the congregation would be, what would serve the congregation best. And after talking with Dick for a while and looking at different options, we decided that kind of a fairly modern, simple type of design would be the best thing for the church. And he pointed out some of the graphic designs that are in the Good News for Modern Man book, that they're just simple line drawings. With the size of the windows, they're not very wide and very tall. It's really difficult to design
For the interest of
something.
the viewer may want to get a mind view of that. And they're 3 foot wide and 15 foot tall, so they're
Yeah.
quite unusual.
This is one of the scale drawings that I did for to present to the congregation
Yeah.
when we went to have them approved. And you can see how narrow and wide they're 3 feet wide and 15 feet tall. So to try to come up with a design that works well in that space is a little tricky. What we did, when you come and see the windows themselves, they're borderless. They're rectangular. The design wouldn't have carried through if they would have been arched windows,
Yes.
like most church windows are.
Yes,
You work with what you have.
yes.
And so a design that does not have, a specific border around the outside. And the other thing is that they had to be operable. In those days, before everything was air conditioned, Central Christian was not air conditioned. And so the bottom panels had to open. And so you have the option there is to double hung, and then the designs overlap themselves. And what we decided to do was hinge them at the bottom. So about the first 3 foot of the window is a separate panel that opens to the inside. There were some problems with that we discovered afterwards, but that seemed to be the best option at the time. And they have since sealed them up, made them inoperable once the church was air conditioned. So that helps the design a lot in that it stays the same.
So I want to step in here and point out to you folks, the viewers, that you're listening to Dave Dunlap, and he's a craftsman. His art is not replaceable. These stained glass windows they're literally works of art, and they're not replaceable. So if you come on the tour on December the 9th, come in late afternoon, I understand.
Yeah.
And you come and see these things, you'll be able to see these windows and the surroundings and the sanctuary and the podium, the lectern, etc., and the King's Mansion and all that. You'll be able to see all of that and be able to see it up close and personal. This program is to attract you to that event so that you can see these things, but also secondarily to let you know that in Marion, Ohio, here, we have a edifice, a church building that has literal works of art in it, and it's viewable, and therefore we want you to take advantage of this opportunity. So, Larry, if I can come back to you. My understanding from you, and I don't want to tell your story for you, but I want you to go a little bit deeper into that story, which is Dave talked about how Dick Barnhart, who was a craftsman of himself, in and of himself, but he recognized the value of Dave's work, and he wanted that work done, and he was a member of the church, and he wanted that craft to be on display or built into the church itself. But the church itself is built on not built on, but built from a thing here in Marion we call the King's Mansion. Can you enlighten us further on that?
Kings decided they wanted this house built. It was back in like 1908. The architect was from Pittsburgh, and George King wanted a certain design that he had seen throughout Europe on his travels.
And who was George King?
George King was the guy that built King's Mansion, and he was president of Marion Steam Shovel at the time,
Wow.
which had turned to be Marion Power Shovel. He sent the architect, the guy that he wanted to build the King's Mansion, to Europe, to a couple places, to see what he was trying to get designed in with this architect. And when he came back, they started buying the land around where the King's Mansion is now. It was very, very elaborate, the process they went through, and they wanted it to be a garden. They put a lot of work into the landscape. There was a large pond back where currently there is a parking lot now. It had boats in it and all kinds of things. So that was George King. Later on, the king's daughter, George had a son and a daughter. The daughter married a Brown, and the Mrs. King said, yeah, you can get married, but you have to live in this house because I'm not living in it by myself. So the Browns took one half of it, I believe the western half. The eastern side was taken by the Kings. Later on, the Browns built a house out of Mount Vernon Boulevard. At that point, they sold the church or put it up for sale. Our church was interested in it back in '47. They bought the church. The money for the purchase of the church was a loan. The church paid it back in the first year. Then sometime in the early 50s, they added the back part, which is now the sanctuary for the church. And originally the windows were the type of windows you opened up with a little crank. They were they didn't seal very good. And then Dick Barnhart came up with the stained glass windows.
Well, and these, once again, to those viewers that have tuned in after we got started here and didn't hear it the first time, there is an open house of a sort here on December the 9th.
December the 9th.
In the late afternoon, and the things that the people are listening to today and viewing, they'll be able to actually see this up close and personal when they can take their own tour, on the December 9th. And this will be, and shortly after this will be aired. So the transition then from the King Mansion to Central Christian Church, and so you saw that that church needed to be embellished, and Dick Barnhart and others decided that the stained glass window would be a marvelous way to do that. So for those that tuned in after we got started here, these stained glass windows that you'll be able to see are indeed works of art. They are not replaceable because people like Dave Dunlap, that art and art form and the artistic thing and the engineering capacity, the craft to build it, to construct the stained glass with all of the artistic stuff and all of the mechanical stuff and all the things that go in there is in Dave's time, and Dave is still with us, that craft was, today it's unreplaceable because the people who did it are, a lot of them are not here anymore. And so that's why we have the value of being able to hear first person from Dave Dunlap himself. So people have an opportunity to see these stained glass windows and take a tour and ask all the questions they want to about the King's Mansion, and you'll probably be there to help answer some of those questions. And what else would you like to add to that?
Well, Dave, the glass they used in the windows is kind of unique, and Dave probably can explain it better than I can, but it is beautiful.
Yeah, we decided that the designs would stay very simple as opposed to a lot of stained glass windows that have a lot of pieces in them, and we'd let the glass do the talking, so to speak. And it's all hand blown. Well, 90% of it's hand blown Blanco glass. Blanco Glass Company from Milton, West Virginia. They primarily make decorative vases. A lot of it's pressed glass, but they also have a line of hand-blown glass vases. Really unbelievable, beautiful things that they make.
Now,
But they also make sheet
Blanco
glass.
glass available today?
Oh, yes. Yeah, the company is still going strong down in Milton, West Virginia. If you're ever down, it's in between Charleston and it's really right across the street across the Ohio River from Gallipolis.
Okay.
And 3.5 hours, I think, is what said on the maps to get down there. They offer tours. They have a museum, and it's a very interesting place.
Now, for those, excuse me for interrupting, because I want the viewers to not miss anything here. So if they want to look this on the internet and where it's actually at, and perhaps to get a motel or whatever they want to do there, and restaurants and all that stuff, what they look for is Blanco Glass Company.
Yeah, Blanco, Blenko.
Okay, Blenko. Okay, continue.
And they make sheet glass as well as all kind of decorative articles, but they make sheet glass. But it's hand blown, but it's blown into forms. Mm-hmm. They have wooden forms that are cylindrical, and they take gather a glass on a punny rod, walk up a steps, and when they're on top of the thing, they blow it into a cylinder. Okay. And in Europe, the hand blowns are blown into cylinders on a table, what they roll back and forth, and they have a lot more control over the sheet glass itself. In Blanco, by blowing it into forms the way they do, they don't have a lot of control over the thickness.
Yes.
So when you see the shading on the blue glass, especially in those windows, it shades from very, very dark blue to very light blue. Mm-hmm. It's because of the thickness of the glass. Yeah. It'll be anywhere from 1/2 an inch thick to paper thin.
Right.
Very difficult to work with, but it cuts phenomenally.
Yeah. So we would, what we want to, some of the things we want to do here is we want to introduce the viewer to the reality of what they can come see here in Marion. Also, this is something that there's just a huge number of viewers would very much like to go to West Virginia, to Blanco Glass, and to take a tour down there, because what you're doing, what both of you are doing, and each of you in different ways, is introducing the fact that there is a craft and a talent and a skill and a product that I didn't know anything about, and I've been around a while, right? So that's the reason I'm excited to learn about this, and I want to share that, with others so that they can appreciate it also. So I don't know if I interrupted you, but is there anything more you can continue with?
Blanco Glass. I think Channel 34, WOSU PBS, did a special on Blanco Glass a few years ago. And the story was that the glass business is very difficult, especially the chemistry involved in making glass. And the thing about working with glass, when they're making it, they can't see what they're making.
Yes,
it's white hot.
Yeah.
And it's all done with sand, basically heat,
Yeah.
and different metallic oxides.
Yes.
Copper oxides and cobalt oxides make
Yeah.
different shades of blue.
Yes.
Well, the gold oxide makes red.
Oh,
And the Blanco red is what saved the company. He worked and worked and worked trying to perfect these glass formulas, and he spent every last cent that he had. This is the late 1800s. And finally, he hit on the gold recipe. And if you look at the red glass in those windows, it just drips of gold. It's phenomenal. You can't describe what that color is like. It's so vibrant. And all of the hand blowns are so fluid that the windows, they seem to come alive by their own right. And by having the very simple line drawings, you can see a lot of dynamics in the shapes. And you try to use the glass, the shading of the glass, to complement how the figures are
Yes.
shaped.
yeah,
And it's a lot of very subtle
yes.
things involved with it. I'll be there at the open house
I'll tell you what.
from 5 to 8 on the 8th.
5 to 8. It is my hope, and I'm sure our hope. And there'll be a lot of people there to want to dig into this, and
I hope so.
hopefully, this program and others like it can stir the interest, because we're in a time frame here where art and artistic value and just value in itself is in short supply, it seems like. And to be able to have this, to be able to go and see and learn more about, and and as we've talked about, about how I didn't even know anything about Blanco glass. I knew something about the glass blowing industry, but very, very little. And now, I'd love to go down, take a trip to West Virginia and see and talk to people there myself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interest will be engendered here, and that will. And that's one of the things that's just byproduct of what we're trying to do here. But the main product of what we're trying to do here is to make the viewer available, or I should say make them aware of the opportunity available that they can go in Marion, Ohio, on Mount Vernon Avenue at the Central Christian Church, and they can walk in and take a tour. They can learn about the King Mansion. They can learn about some of the industry that we had, and also the value of the people that lived here. Yourself, and I mean, you're still here, which is great, but I'm saying there's some people that contributed to the production, the building up and construction of Marion, to building it into the society and the culture it is. And that's one of the key words I want to amplify here is the culture. Because we have greater value here and greater culture here, and we just want to make the viewer aware of that. Any comments on that, Larry?
One of the nice things about the window, I've been there for 70 years plus, and you don't realize how much they change. Sitting there for service runs about an hour and a half, and the windows change many times in that hour and a half as the sun comes up, maybe some clouds on one day, maybe the clouds come and go away, maybe a little rain. The sun changes the perception of the windows every day, almost every hour.
Wow. So folks, we're going to be doing other programs like this, maybe a little longer than this. We want you to have an opportunity to view those. You'll see information in this program, how to contact, or I should say, access some of those programs. But with this program, we want you to understand that the art form, the art products, Dave Dunlap's work, Christian Church's devotion to this was a huge devotion, right? I mean, this was very worthy.
Yes, Dick, when he decided that we needed these and had some concepts, talked to Dave. Dave put together some of these designs early designs of the windows. Dick Barnhart went to certain members of the church, and before he presented it to the church board, he had lined up payment for all 10 windows. So the church board approved the designs and said, go ahead and do it because you got it paid for. We don't have to look into our finances to pay for the windows. They're fantastic.
And all of this is in Marion, Ohio.
Yes, it's Marion, Ohio.
There are things like this, and we have programs like this that we want to spotlight those things as they become available. This is one of the shining lights in Marion, Ohio, that people can come and just come in and watch and view and ask questions and pursue and follow up later with other things like going to Blinker Glass and others. This is a fantastic opportunity to take advantage of the opportunity to view this stuff, to ask questions, to be able to learn how to appreciate it better. And it's such a joy to me to bring this forward. Any parting thoughts, Larry?
I just hope that people that have some interest in history and art forms, as stained glass windows are, come see what we have to show you on the 9th. If you want, arrangements can be made.
9th of December.
The 9th of December. Arrangements can be made so you can come see it during the day. When the sun comes up in the morning on the east side of the windows or on the west side in the evening. It really makes the difference.
And Dave Dunlap, you're the one that made all this available to us. Thank you very much. Any parting thoughts?
Come out and see us. I'll be there from 5 to 8. And I'd love to give you a private tour of the windows.
Yeah. So the man who actually created these, he's the one who invited you here now. I mean, obviously Larry has also, but you can meet and talk to the craftsman himself, and learn more about not only the windows but the industry. Larry will be there. He can talk about the value of the value of the culture in Marion at the time, and this is a simply marvelous opportunity. So please, folks, come out. Central Christian Church, Marion, Ohio, on Mount Vernon Avenue, in Friday, December 9th in the afternoon. And thank you for joining us. And we're overjoyed to be able to bring you this. I'm your host. My name is John Peterson. Come see us. Thank you.